Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
So, you may be wondering why there was no show on Monday. And yes, I did post on the Facebook and the Twitter that there wasn't a show, and it was due to some technical difficulties. Well, a combination of technical difficulties and a tight, busy schedule on Monday. So what I generally do is after I get done doing my morning work that keeps me busy until about 1 o'clock, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I come into a media room, computer room, and set up my studio, and I begin recording. And that's generally what happens. That's the plan for the way I do this. Is I've got a portable mixer, and I've got a microphone and a mic stand and some wires, and they get plugged in, and all of that was working. But what was not working was the software. The Audacity program that I used to record the show, for some reason, the output was not working properly, and so therefore the entire thing was not working. So I could either record the show without being able to hear the music at the beginning and the end of the segments, or I could try to hear the music and then the software crash. And in either case, it was not preferable, so I had to do some stuff to download and update the program, and then I ran into some issues, and then by the time I finally got the program working the way it should, I had about 20 minutes until I had to leave to go to an appointment that I had with a friend of mine who's getting married in a couple of weeks, and had to go over stuff for the wedding. So due to time constraints after I got the software fixed, I just couldn't get it done on Monday. And then I didn't want to record a show yesterday because I don't want to throw the routine off too bad. So, like if I miss a show on Monday, then all right, I'll do it Wednesday. But I think this is only like the third, maybe the fourth time since I've been doing the thrice weekly version of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio that I've actually missed a show. And the other times were, similar sort of, like scheduled conflict with whatever and bad planning. I do think that there was one or two episodes where it was just bad planning on my end. But the one on Monday, it was technical difficulties in addition with busy schedule. So there's only one question for the Ask Me Anything this week. And before I get into that question, I just want to rant about something here for a moment, if I can. And it's a combination of sort of apathy and ignorance. And the reason I say that, and yes, I realize that could describe pretty much anything, to where there's a large percentage of people that are apathetic to the issue, and then there's a lot of people that are ignorant to the issue. And a lot of times the apathetic people are also the ignorant people, although some people that are informed on something are just apathetic about it because they realize it doesn't matter. But, however, this is, one of those things to where, like people should care, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of people are just ignorant of it, and they'll express their opinion anyway. And, what's the quote about people expressing opinions, but the most ignorant generally express them the loudest? Something to that effect. And that seems to be what's going on here in Keene, New Hampshire, where next Tuesday I am moderating a mayoral debate. The Keene Liberty Alliance is hosting the debate. I'm one of the co-founders of the Keene Liberty Alliance, and I invited all three mayoral candidates to come to this pre-primary debate. All three candidates have agreed to attend. I've hosted debates in the past, and there has never been any controversy surrounding previous debates that I've hosted. But for some reason, there's controversy this time. And one sitting city councilor, who, by the way, can be seen in a Colbert Report video from, I think, last summer about the parking meter stuff. I may or may not find the link to that and put it in the show notes. Like, he's the only guy that doesn't come off as a complete a-hole in the entire segment of the Colbert Report. Well, he apparently has gone to the media and said that, like, you know, everybody should boycott watching, nobody should watch, because his claim and the claim of some other people on local radio this morning was that the debate will not be a debate between the candidates, but rather a debate between me, the moderator, and the candidates, and it will be completely biased, and it will not at all be educational for anybody watching. And I find that humorous because there, like I said, there's not been any controversy about any of the other forums that I've put on. There have not been those issues. The most recent forum was 2 years ago for the city council election I moderated, and it was not a debate between me and the city council candidates. It was a debate between the city council candidates, and I asked questions. But for some reason, the city councilor is convinced that I'm, just going to get up and use it as a bully pulpit to push my agenda and not let the mayoral candidates talk at all. And that's not what's going on at all. If that was going on, then I would not have invited the city council candidates. I would just get a show on the local cable access, and I would just rant and push my agenda. But I don't do that. I proudly serve on the board of directors for the local community access station, and I don't use the community access to push my agenda. Yes, I am on a show that's on there, and we talk about an agenda, but it's not, like all Free Stater all the time sort of thing. But that's the claim, is this debate's just going to be used to promote the Free Stater agenda. And one thing that I'm inviting people to do, and I realize that you, the listener listening to this podcast, probably don't live in Keene, and you probably don't really care about the Keene election, but if you have questions for the mayoral candidates, you can send those to me via Twitter. Use hashtag KLA debate. There's also, during the debate, going to be a telephone number people can call in, and there will be somebody basically as a call screener taking the question, relaying the questions to me, and I'm going to be asking questions that people submit. So, it's not going to be me pushing an agenda. It's going to be me moderating a debate, but apparently people are convinced that because I'm involved in it, somehow it's going to be me pushing an agenda because I'm one of those damn dirty Free Staters, and those damn dirty Free Staters don't care about anything other than pushing an agenda, which is absolutely not true. So, rant over. In just a couple moments, I will get into the question that was submitted for the Ask Me Anything. And it's actually a very simple, easy question, very simple, easy answer. And then, because I don't have any more questions this week, I will get into and cover some of the news that I wanted to cover on Monday involving refugees in Syria and what some people are doing to help. I'll get to that when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Opening a wallet is quick and easy, and for merchants, there are no transaction fees on the first $1 million worth of transactions. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the fans program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's FANS.fppradio.com. In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake Security Company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Before I get into the Ask Me Anything and answer the question that was submitted this week, I want to make sure that I tell you about Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. For over 35 years, Roberts & Roberts has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on investing and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 850-478-5270 or visit them online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. So the question that was submitted this week, it's come from a listener who submitted questions in the past. She asked the question, what is the Pennsylvania state law on child transportation time to and from school? I.e., can they be on the bus or van for over an hour? Well, I did a search. It took me to the website for the state of Pennsylvania. Actually, it's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Education, and they actually have a frequently asked questions on pupil transportation. One of the questions is, are school districts required to transport students? And I realize this is not the question that was asked, but it's something that it's the first question on the frequently asked questions. And it jumped out to me because, it's not anything that I'd ever thought that anybody would ask. But apparently somebody frequently asked this question to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And in Pennsylvania, with the exception of charter schools, Pennsylvania does not require a school district to provide transportation to its students. And that's something that's interesting. And then there's a couple other questions before it gets into the question of how long may a child be required to ride a bus? The answer, this is a local decision based on geography, population density, etc. There are no time limits set by law or state regulation. So this is something that you will need to wind up talking to the local school board about, or the local board of education, whoever it is that runs the local school where you live. So state law, there isn't one. And something related to that, there's a question about can a student, or rather can a fee be charged to students who ride a school vehicle? And no, there's under state law in Pennsylvania, the school is prohibited from charging a fee for riding the bus. But again, they are not required to offer a bus, and they can, in theory, keep you on the bus all day long, unless there's a local school regulation that says how long the bus ride should be. So let me now jump into the article that I wanted to cover on Monday, and I'm kind of glad that there weren't a lot of questions this week because it does allow me to cover some of the news that I wanted to cover on Monday that I did not get a chance to do. And this story actually, it's about Syrian refugees, but it's also somewhat a local story for me because it involves a woman in New Hampshire who is doing something to help the refugees. Her name is Nadia Alawa, and the article comes from the Boston Globe. It's sort of a, I forget the term they use, but, sort of like a focus piece to where they found a woman doing a good deed, and they wrote sort of a lengthy article about her, what she's doing, and I'm skipping the first, 4 paragraphs in the article and pick up where it says, Nadia Alawa not long ago spent her time homeschooling her 8 children in East Hampstead, New Hampshire, ferrying them to soccer practice and robotics competitions and volunteering commitments. But as revolution exploded into civil war in Syria, the native country of her of her husband and her father, the crisis reordered her life. She says, "This was my cause. I could not stop." With little more than a computer, a cell phone, and a knack for getting people to help, she created an international relief agency out of her house. In the last 2 years, the organization New Day Syria, that's NUDAY Syria, has sent 53 shipping containers packed with medical supplies, clothing, food, and toys to conflict zones in northern Syria. As her network has grown and requests for help have poured in, Alawa has also raised more than $1 million to help Syrian women and children in other ways. New Day has paid for goats smuggled into a besieged area near Damascus to produce milk for babies. It has found housing and work for Syrian refugee widows in Turkey, and this month the organization opened a school for refugee children there. Her new life is nothing that she could have foreseen in 2011, when the regime of President Bashar al-Assad of Syria cracked down on protesters, and when Facebook, where Alawa likes to post family photos and banter with her older teens, became a window of a pitiless war. Syria, now in its 5th year of armed conflict, is crumbling. Jobs are scarce. Access to medical care is poor. A generation of students has lost years of schooling. Travel is dangerous. The fighting, and I'm glad the next thing is included here because it's something that I want to sort of spend a little more time talking about. The fighting has displaced more than 11 million people. 2/3 of Syria's population needs emergency relief assistance, according to the U.S. Agency for International Development. But most international aid agencies have pulled workers out of Syria because of security risk. So let me talk about the 11 million people that have been displaced just in Syria. Some of these people, you may have heard some of the news about refugees, some coming to the United States, a lot going to Europe. Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, has said that Germany will welcome up to 800,000 refugees this year, most of whom coming from Syria. And other European countries are also welcoming people. Some European countries are basically shutting the door, literally shutting the door. Hungary, there are reports, is building a fence along the border with Serbia to keep out refugees. Even though Hungary is part of the European Union and there's supposed to be, the free flow of people throughout Europe through the Schengen region, well, Hungary wants to build a wall with Serbia to keep out immigrants, specifically refugees, but Germany is welcoming refugees. France and Italy are also doing a good bit to welcome in some refugees. And, of course, President Obama, while I would say definitely not doing enough, has said that the U.S. will welcome up to 10,000 Syrian refugees next year. Normally, the U.S. brings in about 70,000 refugees worldwide. And I want to talk about this a little bit more in just a moment on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, ExpressCoin, and Amazon, at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
So before continuing the discussion about refugees from Syria and elsewhere around the world, I want to make sure that I tell you about Survivor Max by Davi Barker. In Survivor Max, 11-year-old Max must survive the zombie apocalypse alone in New Hampshire. These slow-moving, non-thinking, lame brains swarm his home searching for living flesh. Max must apply his Porcupine Freedom Scout training to plan his escape, but first, he must prove that he's too smart to die. Look for Survivor Max on Facebook and read reviews on Amazon, or read Chapter 1 absolutely free at survivormax.com. That's survivormax.com. So let's discuss the refugee situation a little bit more. And this is something that I delved into somewhat, not too terribly lengthy, on Sunday in my most recent article about refugees and what can be done to help these. There are 59.5 million people worldwide that are refugees of, or rather people that are displaced by war in one form or another. But before I delve too deep, I want to make sure that I cover the difference between someone who is displaced and someone who is a refugee. So all refugees are people displaced by war, but not all people displaced by war are refugees. The difference is whether the person is internally or externally displaced within their country. So, for instance, in Syria, I believe it's 6.5 million people that are internally displaced in Syria. And there are about 4.5 million people that are externally displaced from Syria. So people that have fled the country seeking asylum because the town that they were living in is completely destroyed. The city they were living in is nothing but rubble. It's too much of a war zone. They can't stay there because of legitimate fear that they will be killed by a drone strike. And yes, the U.S. government is using drones in Syria. U.S. government's also using drones regularly in Yemen, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. And those countries have large numbers of people that are displaced and large numbers of people that are officially listed as refugees. Another country that has a large number of displaced people, including refugees, is Somalia. And if you're a libertarian, then you've heard the argument before, well, if you don't like America, then go to Somalia. Well, the problem is, in Somalia, it's not a lack of governments that has caused all of this violence. It's basically an overabundance of governments in Somalia that has caused the war. There's been basically an ongoing civil war in Somalia for about 20 years. The UN has been involved off and on for the last roughly 20 years in Somalia. The U.S. government is still officially listed as an advisor to one faction of the Somali civil war. So, no, it's not a anarchist society. It's actually like a complete statist society to where there's an overabundance of government, and they're all fighting one another and fighting basically everybody for control of basically this giant chunk of desert that's right along the ocean just south of the Persian Gulf. Somalia is right there, and it's not good. Remember Black Hawk Down? There was the movie that got made about the actual event where, like some U.S. military helicopter got shot down and the pilot that was killed got drugged through the streets of Mogadishu. Yeah, that was Somalia. That was U.S. involvement in Somalia and UN involvement in Somalia, and that is part of why it's still horrible there. So the article that I wrote on Sunday, I said, accepting in 10,000 refugees from Syria, it's a good start, but there's something even more simple that the U.S. government could do to help these refugees, is to not create refugees in the first place. And I talked about, and I mentioned here that drone strikes in Syria and Afghanistan are not helping the situation. Drone strikes in Yemen, not helping the situation. Military involvement, overtly or covertly, rather, in Somalia, not helping the situation. So if the U.S. government would just stop meddling in the affairs of all of these foreign countries, it would definitely decrease the number of refugees. Because, again, in Syria, while some people are saying, the U.S. needs to do something in Syria, well, the U.S. is doing something in Syria. And the U.S. has been doing something in Syria for the last several years. Several years ago, it was, we need to arm these rebels to fight Assad and overthrow Assad. And now it's, we need to help Assad fight these rebels. So the U.S. government is wanting to fight the people that they were arming just a couple of years ago. Most of the weaponry, or at least according to several various reports that I've heard from various sources, a large percentage of the weaponry used by the Islamic State militants is U.S. weaponry that was either intentionally delivered to the Islamic State militants or unintentionally delivered because they dropped the weapons in the wrong spot, or they didn't drop the weapons close enough to the rebels that they were trying to arm to fight against the Islamic State. So the U.S. government is definitely involved in Syria. They're doing way too much because they're just making the situation worse. And it was U.S. involvement in Iraq from the 90s that caused some of the stuff that happened in the late 90s and the early 2000s that then caused the U.S. government to go back into Iraq. And, well, we can't leave because they hate us. Well, no, they hate us because we're there. It's this vicious catch-22 cycle that it seems as though the people that actually have the power to do something don't care about, well, they're hating us because we're there. They're thinking, well, they hate us, so we have to be there. But it's good to see, and I'm going to bring this back around to the article that I started covering. It's good to see that people are doing something outside of just expecting a government agency somewhere to handle the situation. So there's this group, New Day Syria, and I'll post a link to their website because they have a lot of different ways that you can help. They have an Amazon wish list where if you want to buy specific things for people, you can do that. They've also got several different funds, so you can donate to a fund that would just, like, for instance, buy goats for people because they need food. So I'll post that, and do with the information what you will. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.